from Relay FM. This is Connected, episode 159. Today's show is brought to you by Blue Apron, Hover, and Encapsula. My name is Michael Hurley. Oh, wow, why did I do that? I'm joined by Federico Battici and Stephen Hackett. Hello, everyone. We're very formal today. What did I do that for? Oh, no. As you can tell, I'm a little bit sick, and I'm afraid the cold has spread to my brain. So that's the end of me now. I have never done that. Why did I do that? That was so strange. Hello, my name is Michael David James Hurley. Welcome to this show.
Wow.
We have some follow-up. Stephen, please follow up, because I've doxed myself now.
Yeah, you really did. You used all your names.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about my annual St. Jude fundraiser, and thank you to the Connected audience. We have, as of Monday, we reached our goal of $9,000. It's currently at $15,000 and change, which is super awesome.
They met the challenge. Thank you. I challenged everyone, and they did it and destroyed it, because we had a goal. You had a goal of $9,000, and it's at 15 now, which is unbelievable, and it's the best cause ever. And please give money if you haven't already. Please just do it, because it's worth it. So great. So awesome. So thank you. And I know lots of people have been linking to it on Twitter, and I saw some blog posts about it from lots of people. So thank you all for sharing. And it means the world to me and my family and lots of other St. Jude families. Yep. Couldn't be a better cause.
So we're going to jettison the rest of follow-up to next week. There's some very exciting Spotify follow-up that I'm not going to tell you about yet, but it's really a scene in my house right now, my music situation. I've just gone back to cassette tapes. That's the
no, there's no spoilers.
But yeah, it's just tapes everywhere. We're going to get into this Apple event, but really the Apple event wasn't yesterday. It really sort of started over the weekend, because
oh wow,
because
okay.
A couple of weeks ago we would have said the HomePod firmware leak, probably the worst software leak Apple's ever had. Surely it won't happen again. And guess what happened, guys? It happened again.
It happened again, but it was kind of worse and different.
I think this was worse, right? I think this was definitely worse.
I think it was worse too,
because the HomePod stuff, it really kind of mostly confirmed things we already thought we knew, right?
Yeah, and also it was a mistake. We're
going to get into that in a minute. We're going to get into this mistake malicious meme that's going around right now. But this really kind of, it took away a lot of the little things, right? Because when the HomePod stuff's going around, wherever these leaks, people were just like, oh, this is the broad strokes, but where Apple really excels is the little things. And this leak had all those little things in it. Stuff like Animoji, like some of the portrait mode stuff. Like, so many really interesting tiny details were shared in advance. And even stuff like the animation for registering Face ID, the fact that there was going to be an update to AirPods, the list goes on and on and on, right, of the little things that came out because of this leak. And from what can be discerned, I think initially it was presumed that this was a leak from a carrier, right? I think that was originally how it was reported, that it maybe slipped out during the testing process. But it later came to light that really this was just someone shared a public URL, because the URL was public, to get the GM, which I assume is created to share with carriers and stuff like that, to share with people that need to do regulatory testing. Apple has a URL that they give to these companies, which is obscurity. What is it, security through obscurity type deal?
Yeah, basically, they shared an entire list of links from I assume from what I've heard from an internal email. They selected an entire paragraph of links, and they just sent that around to a bunch of publications, and then eventually on Reddit and other sites. Yeah.
And I think it might have been, for me personally, John Gruber, who I first saw mention to the fact that he was very aware that this was sent out by someone inside of Apple, not as a controlled leak, but as I want to spoil things, or I want to share, somebody was leaking this to spoil something, right? And so, Federico, you mentioned mistake, and what do you mean by that? Can you explain that?
For the HomePod, I do mean that it was done on accident because of the way that the way that Apple handles these releasing OTA updates for internal employees only and the general public. My understanding is that the system that they used to have in place, I don't know if it's been changed since, I hope so, but the system that used to be in place months ago, it was really easy to make that kind of mistake. It was a very manual process, and someone who was in charge of pushing this OTA update for the HomePod to the employees that are currently testing the speaker made a genuine mistake and basically dropped the file in the wrong folder. And the fact that was even possible, it wasn't meant to be a malicious act. It just, you're dealing with drag and drop and you're dealing with two folders. It's easy to make that kind of mistake, but the system shouldn't be structured like that in the first place. So from what I know, that was a mistake. This one, it was done on purpose. I don't know I guess if you're sharing the GM before the release, and especially the GM seed of the iPhone 10, you know that there's going to be stuff in there, and you know that people are going to be able to decrypt the firmware and to look inside and see stuff like an emoji. So to say that that person didn't know the extent of his actions or her actions, I don't believe that, I don't think that's the case. They knew perfectly that leaking the GM a few days ahead of the event would cause damage to Apple.
All the reporting around it was really interesting for a couple of days, right? There seemed to be a lot of discussion about like whether 9 to 5 should have reported on it, etc., etc. My personal feeling on it is a shame that this stuff came out, but 9 to 5 should have reported on it. If you get some really interesting, juicy details, would you not share them? So, Federico, if somebody gave this to you, you got this GM, would you do anything with it? I mean, you don't have to say, like, you do go to the whole extent that they did, ripping it to shreds, but...
No, I mean, you know me, and I wouldn't do that, because I've had much better material in the past, and I've sat on it with my mouth shut, not because I don't think it should be reported on, because I do believe 95 Mac and Mac Rumors, and they're doing their job, and it's their business model to report this, and if they, especially after the links were on Reddit, were public, thousands of people had the GM installed before Apple stopped signing the file, so they were just doing their jobs. Personally, I don't like doing that, because it's not the way that I see Mac stories. It's not what I do, and I wouldn't be able to sleep comfortably at night knowing that I'm upsetting other people, even if it would be a considerable gain for my website. I mean, at least in terms of traffic. But I had stuff in the past, and I didn't share it. But I also believe it's totally 95 Mac and Mac Rumors are just doing their jobs, and if they were not reporting on that first, somebody else would have. So
I don't think they did anything wrong in reporting this information. I mean, because the idea of spoilers is an interesting thing for me. Like, are spoilers a thing for a company event where they're introducing new products? Like, I mean, this is something that I've been really bouncing around in my head a lot over the last week or two. Like, spoilers is a thing, right, for an Apple event. It seems kind of strange in the abstract term, because, like, spoilers, this is a term that we use for works of entertainment, fictional things, and obviously we see Apple's presentations as a work of entertainment, right? It's why we watch the 2-hour keynote presentation or whatever. But it's like this. It's really weird that, like, there is this entire industry built around reporting on rumors that we all pay attention to. But then there is a certain line that can be crossed where people start talking about spoilers. Like, I think that these leaks this past weekend, it's been really interesting, and I can't, in my mind, sum up exactly why this one was considered to be so bad.
I think it was a combination of the fact that it was the second time, and so a lot of people thought that we had the immune system to this kind of leak because of the HomePod, and instead this was worse. So it's like, imagine if you get a bad disease and you do a vaccine, and then a few months later you get the same disease again, only it's worse, and apply that in terms of spoilers, and we thought, we have, that there was a leak months ago, it's fine, and now we're gonna be surprised, and then just a few days before, it hit hard again.
I guess it was the
even
proximity,
more details,
right? The proximity to the event is the problem.
Yes,
because it was everybody thinks once you get to like Saturday before the keynote, you're probably good now, right? Like you've probably got everything you're gonna get. But then it was just like for the entire weekend, more and more and more information as Steve Troughton-Smith and Guillermo Rambo were looking through all of this stuff and pulling out more and more and more things. Like, I think it's totally fine that they do that stuff because, look, if you don't want to see it, don't follow them on Twitter because, you're gonna get it, right? Because this is what they do. The problem is, though, that now whatever they find is reported more widely. And if you follow anyone in technology or anything in technology, you are going to find out about what happens in these things because it's such big news, Like even the people who are talking about the fact that it's terrible still link to it.
Well, I got a lot of replies after I got in a kind of argument about whether an Apple event constitutes a spoiler-worthy event comparable to Star Wars, for example. Some people obviously believe that an Apple event is comparable to going to the cinema to watch a movie and someone walks out and tells you who dies at the end. And other people say, well, it's just a big commercial for a company. I think I sit somewhere in the middle, and I think I tweeted this. Of course, there's spoilers about an Apple event, and it's nicer to be surprised. I think it would have been, we would have been in a different mood hadn't we know anything about the iPhone 10. Like the design. Imagine if the design with the ears was completely new yesterday. We would have gone crazy. Instead, we were already used to it. But I also think that any Apple event is more about how Apple presents a story and presents the features. And I think it was still a good show from that perspective.
There's sort of a strange phenomenon, right? Phil Schiller's on stage and he is introducing things and then people are clapping, which is like a side topic, which I find super weird in press events. I know they have Apple employees there. In my mind, I just hope it's all Apple employees and not people in the press applauding, but...
Please clap.
Please clap. Poor Jeb. Sad. So he announces his stuff and he's rolling it out and like everyone in the room knows it's coming, but he still announces it. Like there was no nod. So like when the iPhone 4 was left in a bar and Gizmodo picked it up and took it apart, Jobs said on stage, you've seen this before, but you ain't really seen it. And Apple has made jokes like that in the past of stop us if you've heard this before. There was none of that yesterday. And in my mind, I think it's because the leaks were so serious and like so deep. Like we knew almost everything that Apple just chose for whatever reason just to not address it whatsoever. And that was sort of strange, right? Like it's sort of like there's this big elephant in the room and like you can kind of joke about it when one gets left in a bar, but when an employee leaks a bunch of firmware to the press, maybe it's awkward to joke about. It's a very strange dynamic, I think, played out on stage.
Yeah, I think it was the right move, right? Because acknowledging it depends what people are doing it for.
Acknowledging it in a way encourages it, right? Like
because it makes people famous.
Yeah, if the 2-year-old is bad, like sometimes all the 2-year-old wants is attention, and if he's throwing a tantrum to get attention like that, you need to be careful about how you approach that situation so you don't encourage that bad behavior. And I think that I'm not calling whoever did this a 2-year-old, but I think there are some parallels that if Apple doing nothing about this publicly is more of a voice of damnation than if they got on stage and said, yes, we had a leak and we're working to find who it is, because then you embolden people who are tempted to do it.
Yeah, I think, with where we are, building on what you were saying, Federico, with where we are today in 2017, like you can't go into these events without knowing anything anymore. And it's been that way for such a long time. And clearly it appears that Apple's attempts to increase secrecy are upsetting some of their employees. That's what I think has done this, personally. Like we heard that big report about the secrecy. I can imagine many people inside of a company being really upset about being put through that and lashing out, because it is kind of a very strange thing, right? To be sat down in a room and to be told off by some security officers and being told what to do. And I expect that there are people that are lashing out against that, which is why we're getting some really weird and involved and deep leaks from inside of Apple.
Well, you're right, and I would also add to that in the current political climate in the U.S., I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of personal revenge against the direction that, for example, management and especially Tim Cook is going for with in regards to Apple and their views. Yeah.
So there's there are maybe more reasons than ever before for people to get things out. And honestly, like, this is going to be a cat and mouse game. Every time Apple plugs a hole, there will be another one, right? This is just how it's going to be, because at the end of the day, people can just talk to people, right? Like, it doesn't, the firmware stuff is more revealing because people, can find things themselves and show evidence, but people couldn't always talk. So my feeling on this is, it is a shame that we found out so much information, but when I see it, I appreciate it for what it is, as exciting news, and just wait for the event as normal. It's like, what am I going to do about it? Like, I'm not going to avoid it, because do you know what? Last weekend was really exciting and super weird and fun to watch in its own way. So my feeling on it is just like, appreciate it for what it is and move ahead. Do you know what I mean? Like, last weekend was crazy, and I had so much fun chatting with you guys and reading Twitter about all the stuff that was happening, because it was like, whoa, what is going on? And I still watched the event, and I still had a great time watching the event, and I was still like gasping and laughing my butt off and stuff. Like, I feel like where we are in 2017, these things come together now. Like, you got to take one and you got to take the other.
Yeah.
But don't leak anything to Federico, because he ain't never going to do nothing with it. Right, Federico?
Well, I'm going to keep it to myself.
Yeah, you keep it to yourself. That's the way to do it, Just know the knowledge. Know that you know.
I'm just saying, I'm a good receiver of
You're like
the
a
leaks.
vault.
That's
right?
all.
It just goes in and you lock it in the vault and it stays there.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Today's show is brought to you in part by our friends over at Hover. Oh, Hover. We love Hover. Hover are awesome. Hover can help you build your online identity, because it's never been more important. This continues to get more and more important. You want to have an identity that you can express online. And a domain name is something that's so important because it shows the world who you are and what you're passionate about. Relay.fm. That is the brand of our company. Relay.fm, right? Like, that is the URL. That is our name. We are Relay FM. Our domain name and our company name, they're tied together, and that's purposeful. We added an FM to the name of our company because we wanted a .fm domain name. Those two things went together. We have our .fm domain name hosted at Hover. They hold on to it. They keep on to it. They are the good guardians of our domain name. And I do this for myself. I have MikeWasRight.com because that's part of my online identity, for good and for worse. And I went to Hover and registered it. This, like, domain names are serious, but they can also be fun, and they do show who you are. They are part of who you are online. And the great thing about Hover is that they allow you to keep your domain separate from your hosting. You never have to get stuck with a service that doesn't meet your needs. You can move it around, and you can find what works for you. They have no upsells and a clean user interface, and you also get free Whois privacy, so bad guys don't get your information. If you want to show the world what you're passionate about, Hover is there to help you make that first step. Go to hover.com/connected and you'll get 10% off your first purchase. That is hover.com/connected for 10% off your first purchase. Thank you to Hover for their support of this show. iOS stories. I still own that one, I think. Where does that go now? iOSstories.com?
Let's see.
Where does it go? Nowhere. Maybe I have .net. I guess it's .net, right? It still goes to MikeWasRight.com, yeah. I registered that at the App Camp for Girls meetup in WWDC 2 years ago as a joke for Federico. One day I'll put it where it needs to go if I remember. All right, should we talk about the event, Stephen? Over to you.
Yes, let's talk about the event. We like to start with meta comments, so that's where we're going to go first. It's first time on Apple Park, first time in the Steve Jobs Theater. The event opens with a really nice video of the park and the theater and all these wonderful glass buildings. I will insert a comment here that if you have not listened to or don't normally listen to Upgrade with Jason and Mike, you definitely should, because Jason was there and talks a lot about just the process of being on campus and how the theater was. I found all this stuff endlessly interesting.
We're going to go there next year, right? We're going to take a trip, right? During
take a field
WWDC?
Trip. Absolutely. It seems like it went off without a hitch. Like there's no reports and press of people being locked in bathrooms or the power not working in their chairs. Seems like everything worked. So that's
well, maybe
good.
They're still locked away, right?
Maybe, yeah. I did see press posting pictures of the bathrooms, which I just
there were no handles on the doors, which people were complaining about. But I don't. If you can't find a handle for a door, push the door. I mean, I don't really know how difficult that is. But
put your back into it. Come on.
Yeah, use some elbow grease.
Yeah. Use your giant iPhone Plus to leverage it open.
Just smash it open.
It's good. That's what Johnny Ive wants. The event opens. Of course, it's the first time at Steve Jobs Theater. It opened with what I thought was just a really heartwarming dedication of the theater to Steve Jobs.
It hit me, man.
Yeah, so it opens. If you haven't watched the video, you should definitely watch it. It just says Steve Jobs Theater on the screen, and there is a voiceover from Steve talking about the passion he has for making things and infusing that passion into Apple. And as long as Apple keeps that first, Apple will be okay. It was actually like very sobering because the theater was dark. It's just the white text. You don't see any pictures of Steve during this time.
Do you know where that came from?
I tried finding it. So it doesn't sound like it's recorded at the very end of his life. I don't really know where it's from, and I couldn't really find it. So
the audio quality to me sounded like an older clip.
Yeah.
Right, like it wasn't something, it was maybe recorded, I don't know, like 20 years ago or something. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't sound like it was super new. As new as it could have been anyway.
So if you know, if that's from a speech or an interview or something, I would really like to know. So let us know. Tim comes out. One of his first lines is, and this felt super, super genuine from him, was, I miss hearing his voice. And like I get it, right? Like even part of my brain now is like, he's a CEO of a company. You never met him. But like a lot of us looked up to Steve and still have feelings about him and his work. And as much as the three of us feel that way, and if it's cheesy or not, it's kind of not my point. Like Tim Cook and these guys, like all this executive team, they work with him for decades. Like I still imagine it's very raw for them moving into a campus that was Steve's last work, running a company that is Steve's biggest product. And it was really nice. Steve's widow was there. I think in the front row, like it was just a very nice like Apple family moment. I had some pictures of Steve talking about his life, talking about how Apple Park was his vision for the future of the company, and like he wanted, developers and designers to work together, and like so, Steve Jobs came up with the open floor plan. I guess we can blame him, but all of this just really nice stuff. We're not going to see this every time. This is you have to dedicate the theater to who you named it after. And I think it was an incredible way to open it. And even the transition was, Steve loved days like this where we get to announce new products and we have a bunch of new products. Like they even handled that transition out of it, I think, really gracefully.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Yeah, it was. It was really nice. Not everything was awesome. So there's a link. We have a link in the show notes to an article on The Verge. They were keeping tally, as I think a lot of us were. The gender ratio this time was pretty bad. Mm-hmm. We talk about this after every event. Apple seems to do better at WWDC because there's more opportunity for more people on stage than events like this. But it was basically all white dudes this time. Angela had a section at the beginning talk about retail, but after that it was just dudes.
Yeah, it's a shame. They had a couple of like cameo moments, like Deirdre on the paddleboard.
Which was like the best. We're gonna get to
So
it. That was
good.
one of the best demos Apple's done
since Phil Schiller jumped out of a window. But
That is
yeah,
my
it wasn't
favorite.
good. It wasn't good. And I feel like they do some of that stuff to like attempt to try and balance it out, but that for me only points out the fact that they're not doing a good job in general. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes they're trying to compensate, but by doing that, they only serve to continue to highlight the fact that one, all of their executives are men, and two, that they only have those executives come out on stage to demo the products. Like it's peculiar. Like, does Eddie Q really need to come out to demo Apple TV? Like, does he need to do that?
No.
Like,
No.
I don't know if it actually has to be him. So yeah, this is something that I mean, all of us only hope we'll get better, but it's still a shame that we have to talk about this all the time.
Yeah,
because
and it's a shame that it's predictable. Like
Yeah.
going into this, that the fall events, because they're smaller, and Apple. I mean, I get it. Like Phil Schiller's going to be on stage to talk about the iPhone. I don't have a problem with that. But if you have opportunities for other players to come in, you should take that. And like you said, like Eddie Q is the perfect example. Like Eddie's who he is, and you know he did a good job this time. But is there someone on the Apple TV team who, you know, has more ownership over the product than he does, right? Because Apple doesn't just pick somebody because of their gender or race to put them on stage. It's somebody who is over that product or who is involved in it, right? They just don't randomly pick to meet a number, and that's important to them. Like, was there somebody there? Is there somebody on that leadership team that could do that? I don't know, but I hope that they do better than this. This is not a stroke in the win column for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what else? Big Apple retail section. I don't think there's anything particularly new in there. They talked about how they're calling their fancy stores town halls, which is like my eyes rolled so hard they fell out of the back of my head.
Teacher, you going to Milan to watch a movie?
I'm going to the Milan town square for movie night instead of watching a movie at my house. I'm gonna go to the Apple town square. I think it's very. I mean, the stores and the locations look fantastic, and I'm pretty sure that the one in Piazza Liberty in Milan will be amazing. There's just a tone of like, I don't know, pretentiousness maybe.
Yes.
Luxury, man.
Like,
it's luxury.
It's
what
like
it is.
it's like, yes, it's a very. I mean, the Apple stores are amazing, but like it's a store, and like people, they have this idea of the people like to hang out at the Apple store, and maybe there's some element of that when you consider the cultural events with like today at Apple and that kind of stuff. But in practice, people go to the Apple store when their iPhone screen is broken and when they need to buy, a new lightning cable and stuff like that. I don't see that beautiful image of, couples sharing a day at the Apple town square and children smiling and running around as the Genius Grove is, filling up with people. I just don't see that. It's not a park, it's an Apple store. Like they're making this more romantic than it should be. That's all I'm saying.
It's like they can embrace the fact that people do go there and they just want to look around and stuff like that. But it's like,
it's like if I want to spend quality time with my girlfriend, I'm not going to the Apple store.
Like, make the nice stores. Like, make the nice stores because they're amazing. But just understand what they are. They're not community spaces, right? They're not. They're still stores. Even if you have events, it's just a store that has events in it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if they actually build something that you cannot buy anything in, then fine. Right? Which is not unheard of. Like, not unheard of, but it's not like a thing you could never imagine, right? Because it could just be like a big marketing thing. But if you can buy something in there, it's a store. Right? Wait, come on, guys. Come on.
So what you're saying is I should cancel my family trip to my Apple Town Hall.
Yeah, you should. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, imagine that. It's, for example, for my birthday, instead of organizing, I don't know, a dinner at a fancy restaurant at the beach, I'm just going to say to my friends, hey guys, let's my birthday party is going to be at the Apple Town Square.
I'll meet you at Apple, right? Isn't that the line we're supposed to say? I'll meet you at Apple.
I'll meet you at Apple. I mean, so you can buy me my birthday gift directly.
That's what we're gonna do for Mike's bachelor party. To scrap what else we're working on. We're just gonna go to
the Apple.
At Apple.
Go to the Apple.
Go to Apple Town Square, somewhere in America.
See you at Apple, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, it's gonna be great. I was a little surprised by the retail section. We haven't seen one in a while, and I figured there's a lot of stuff to talk about in this event because I don't think there's going to be a second fall event. I started to doubt myself once we were into retail. I was like, oh, are they pushing this so they can push something else to October? I don't think that's the case. I still think we're only seeing one event. Maybe they just want to talk about their new stores, but it's good to see. I think it was an informative section, but just a little unexpected in such a busy morning.
Talking about busy, there were 3 iPhones. Should we talk about the 8s quickly? I mean, really?
Yeah, why
not?
Right? Like,
no one cares about the 8.
We should talk about them, though. Come on, we can't not talk about them.
And I'm mocking. I'm mocking the 8 a little bit. I think if you are a consumer, you probably if you're this person, you're probably not listening to this show. But if you upgrade your phone every 2 or 3 years, the 8 or 8 Plus is going to be awesome. I've got a couple of friends. I'm sure y'all are like this. On iPhone day, everyone in your life texts you to be like, "What should I buy?" Mm-hmm. Like I went to a thing last night with like 5 or 6 friends, and they were all like, "This is what we talked about the first 20 minutes." Those are new iPhones, but I think if you're that sort of user, like I've got friends who have an iPhone 6 or a 6S, they're going to go to an 8, and it's going to be an awesome upgrade, and they don't want to spend the money for the 10, which is totally understandable. So the 8 is an important phone. I think it is overshadowed in the enthusiast circle, but we have to remember that we're like the king of the enthusiast circle. Like, of course, we're all doing the 10. But for a lot of consumers, the 10 is just like a crazy thing Apple did at the top of the line, like the gold Apple Watch was.
Because it's so
the
expensive,
it's
silly. New. It's just silly. It's
exactly.
Silly,
and that's what basically everyone last night said. And then, I'm sure they were all judging me because they know I'm going to buy it. But
but also, like, again, I do need to say, like, the Jet Black Plus, silly expensive, right? They're silly expensive, these phones. The Plus phones were very expensive. The 10 is very expensive. I just want to say something super quick. Maybe someone can help diagnose this for me. But I think Apple's product pages give me motion sickness. Like, the scrolling, I get so uncomfortable with the scrolling on these pages, like the iPhone pages.
That's a good one. I hate where they hijack your scroll.
It makes me feel ill, and I don't know what it is. I don't have motion sickness. I've never had motion sickness before.
So you feel how I feel when I look at the...
I think the ProMotion.
iPads.
I can't handle physically uncomfortable scrolling these pages.
That's because you know how much money you're going to spend.
But I'm looking at the iPhone 8 right now. I mean, I really don't like it. Like, I'm scrolling. I have to look away when I scroll.
There's a lot of moving elements. It's not just like the initial animation. It's like as you scroll, every single section has some moving parts.
Yeah,
and
also
they move in different directions.
It doesn't scroll as smoothly as I think it should, and I think that might be part of it as well.
Yeah,
it's a bit jittery because it's such a heavy web page. I expect.
Yeah,
they're very beautiful, but they make me sick. But I tried it in Safari too on my iPad, and I had the exact same problem because I figured, maybe Chrome isn't rendering this correctly, because that has happened in the past, but it doesn't seem to be the case. But anyway, the 8 is I think it's a really good looking phone. I like the glass, right? I like the return of the glass. I do really like the new gold color, which it seems to be a mix between rose gold and gold. Like, it seems to be something kind of in between those.
I was watching some hands-on videos this morning. It seems very subtle. Like, it is.
I like it.
I think the video I watched called it like a sandblasted look almost. Like, it's like it was colorful and they stripped the color back somehow. Like, it looks really nice in the renders, but very subtle, I think, in person.
It almost looks like there's there is like some kind of color on the back of it, which is not white, and it looks really nice. It's like this goldy color, and then the aluminium is like a gold color. And the phone itself, it's good, right? Like, it's got the wireless charging in it, which I wouldn't have expected. It's got all the features that we expect. It's got these new portrait mode features, right? This lighting stuff. Is this just for the new phones?
Hold on a second.
All right.
It's also got the standard power adapter, which is a shame that Apple is still putting this one in the box. Of course, it's got the EarPods. It doesn't have the AirPods. It's gonna be a long time, I think, before we get the AirPods in the box. and it's got the lightning to headphone jack adapter. So that's the other thing.
Yeah, that comes in the box with the X. Oh, the X. Here we go. With the 10 too.
Oh no!
It comes in the box. We'll get to that. It comes in the box with the 10, the little adapter thing, which I'm really surprised they put it in there.
I'm just really annoyed that these phones support fast charging, and then Apple is still upselling you on the USB-C charger, which should be the correct one to give to people. But anyway,
it does. What's the fast charging one? It does what, like 50% in 30 minutes or something?
50% in 30 minutes thanks to USB-C power delivery, which is obviously has been built into the Lightning controller. So now you can take advantage of any USB-C brick that has power delivery built in, and you can fast charge your iPhone, just like you can do roughly the same with the iPad Pro and USB-C.
I will say that that's nowhere near what Android phones can do. Like with the USB-C stuff, they charge so much faster than that. So maybe that's why they're not heavily promoting it yet, because it's not really fast charging. Yeah. It's faster charging.
It's faster.
I was asking about the portrait mode, right?
So you get it on the iPhone 8 Plus also.
But you don't get it on the 7 Plus, right? They're not adding these things to the 7 Plus, even though they seem to just be software, right? This seems to be a software feature for that phone.
But I think it's in the sensors that they're using for the new dual cameras.
Okay.
So I think that's the reason. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that Apple is artificially...
I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's a problem.
Limiting a feature, even if older hardware would be perfectly capable of.
You got to sell your product, right? Like, you've got to do that. And sometimes it's the combo of software and hardware that you sell. No,
but I mean, it gets especially obvious when stuff like the first gen 12.9-inch iPad Pro, if you just change a couple of lines in the iOS 11 firmware, you can use 3 apps at once, but Apple is artificially limiting the feature so that it only works on the second gen 12.9-inch iPad Pro. But I think in this case, for the portrait lighting effects, I think it's down to the sensors in the camera. It's not just like marketing making a decision that, no, this feature must be on the new phone. I think it's actually in the sensor.
So we can move on to the 10. I think my feeling on this is...
I got one more thing on the 8
go on,
and 8 Plus. I think it's great that Apple is using the same system on a chip in all of these phones. That, like, if the 10 didn't exist, the 8 and 8 Plus is still a huge upgrade in performance over the 7 and 7 Plus. Like, I was hoping for this, but I was a little nervous, right, that this would get, say, the A11 and then the high-end phone will get like the X version of it, right? It's like faster GPU or something. But the silicone is the same in all of these phones, and it means they're going to age better. They're going to age more appropriately for a high-end phone. You know, this is, if it weren't for the 10, this would be the flagship, and it has all the power we expect in a flagship upgrade year over year. And that was encouraging to me that Apple is taking this phone seriously.
Yeah, I would say that if you have upgraded, right, like any time during this iPhone 6 body generation of phones that we've had, you will be as happy upgrading to this phone probably as you've been upgrading to any others, because
I think so.
It is a similar kind of bump that we've had over the last couple of years, right? It looks the same, the cameras are better, and it has some other cool features. You get wireless charging, everything's faster, right? Like it feels like that. True Tone. Actually, like the 7 to the 8 feels better than the 6S to the 7.
Yeah, and
for sure.
I think this is quite possibly for this design, like this iPhone 6 era design, this is as good as it gets.
Right. So this is it. This is the ultimate design of that. This is how good that is gonna get. Right. Like that is as good as it will get. I think that they have managed that. I think adding glass back into that phone is going to make it look really fancy again, like in a new way. But let's talk about the 10. All right, just super quick. I keep saying X in my head. I can't help it. I can't help it because it says it right there, right? Like it says X. So I just keep saying X because honestly, like personally, I prefer X. I think it's cool in a weird way. I get why they've done 10. I get it, but I do personally wish that they called it X, and I will accidentally call this the iPhone X in a way that I never called it Mac OS X.
Yeah, totally the same problem. Yes.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it all the time.
I was having a conversation with Stephen Troutman-Smith yesterday over iMessage, and he was telling me, look, they're gonna call it the iPhone 10 because it's tomorrow's iPhone today. And I was like, sure, it's a beautiful idea, but iPhone X just sounds cool, and they cannot possibly do the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10 in the same year. And I was so certain they were not gonna do the 10. And I was so surprised when they actually said iPhone 10. Like, I couldn't believe it that they actually went there. I was so sold on the idea, they're going to do the iPhone X. So it sounds futuristic, it sounds cool, and it's a chance for them to reset the numbering. So next year, they're going to do iPhone X2 and iPhone X3 and iPhone X4, you know? And they just went in the opposite direction. And
they've already solved this. This is a solved problem. It's going to be 10.1.
No.
And then 10.2 Jaguar. And 10.3 Panther.
No.
Oh,
Let's bring the big cat names back.
Time is a flat circle.
It really is.
If I was going to make a super early prediction that I shouldn't make,
oh no,
I think that next year we get 9 and 11, and then 12 they have 2 models. I don't think there's going to be a Plus version next year. I think they're going to make an iPhone 9. I don't think they're going. I don't think that between now and then they're going to be able to make a bigger phone in this form factor. I just don't think it's going to happen. So they're not just going to have one phone for sale, which costs $1,000. I think that they'll make another version of the current design, and then they'll make another one of this new 10 design, but it will be the iPhone 11, and then there will be an iPhone 9. I just, as we stand here today, I don't believe that they will be able to make what is essentially the Plus version of this phone within a year. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. Because they seem to have struggled to put this one out, right? Like, it seems like it's going to be constrained. It seems like it was difficult for them to make, right? Like, if you are to believe anything that you are to believe, then that would be the case. Because I can tell you, there is no way Apple wanted this phone to ship in November. Like, why would they want to do that? They want it to ship now, right? Like, why would you do that? Why would you want it in November? You want to have it immediately for everyone, right? That's the whole point of doing the event. Like, you have it available for pre-ordering in a week, and you sell it the week after that, right? But they're not doing that. I really think that we're going to see a 9 next year, and I think, personally, I think that's probably why they went with calling it 10 and nothing else, because it's in the line, but it's in the future, and that they're still going to backfill up until this point.
Yeah, the idea of selling the phone from the future today is the perfect excuse to make it a more expensive phone, because you're paying for the future, and God knows what the future costs. So it's okay for Apple to charge over $1,000 for this.
In the future, $1,000 isn't worth what it's worth now.
In the future, money loses all meaning. So
inflation, they're just charging inflation.
They're preemptively charging for inflation in the markets. Makes sense. So, I was just surprised because and we go back to this discussion on the leaks and the rumors. Unlike macOS 10, which macOS 10 was already a thing when I came into the Apple ecosystem. So I had to learn the correct pronunciation of macOS 10 as I was learning the Apple world. But the iPhone 10 and iPhone X, it was rumored that I convinced myself in my mind before the event that was going to be the correct naming. And now it's going to be, maybe in a month we're not going to talk about this anymore. But I'm already hearing people. My mother called me a couple of hours ago. She was like, so what about the iPhone X? And I thought, this is going to be a problem. Everybody's going to call it the iPhone X.
Whenever, I think it was Tim that said the name. Whoever it was that said the name, when they said 10, I was like, no! I was, why? Yeah. Why did you do this to me? Yeah. I don't dislike it. I don't dislike that it's 10, but my brain was already set on X. Like, it's done.
The iPhone Tim? Like Tim would say?
The iPhone Tim. The Tim phone. Okay. Right, should we just get off this, stop talking about it? Should we just stop talking about the number?
Okay, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful phone.
It's so beautiful.
Amazing.
Oh my God, I want it so bad. I want it so bad. Like, just give it to me right now. Like, I'm so sold on this. I know many people have many problems. We'll talk about some of those many problems. I don't see them. I just see this beautiful thing that I want so bad. And right, like I feel like we should probably just address this right now. Obviously, all of us are not getting the 8 Plus. Right?
Nope.
So like Plus Club is over. Hashtag Plus Club is dead for now. We're gonna put it on a shelf.
Now it's the X Club.
I've thought about X Crew. Hashtag X Crew.
X
the new,
Crew.
because I don't want to go for club because we already had a club. I feel like we should be a crew now. So I'm going with hashtag X Crew.
We should be. Maybe we should be a fam, you know?
The X Fam? No, I don't like that so much.
The X Fam.
Personally, I'm going with X Crew. Hashtag X Crew to replace the Plus Club. The thing is, right, and people have been asking me this already about like, oh, obviously you're going to stick with the Plus because you love the Plus so much. The idea of like Plus Club was never about just, I want to have a big phone. Like for me, you guys can chime in too. It was about I want the best phone. And I believed personally the Plus to be the best phone. And it's not anymore. The 10 is better. And it's going to take some time for us, for all Plus users, to get used to this new phone, right? Because it seems like it's a compact design in UI. Obviously, the keyboard's going to be smaller. The screen is still big, but it's big in a different way, right? Like it's tall, not wide. I still think that I will get mostly what I want, which is good battery life. It looks like it's probably got like Plus level battery life because it's, what did I say, 2 hours more than the 7. So the battery life is going to be fine. And I'm going to get the 2 cameras, which I really love, and they're even better, right? Because they're both optically image stabilized. That was a terrible way to say that, but you know what I'm trying to say. And you get a screen where I can see a ton of stuff on it. And that's kind of all I really want. This is going to be the best phone, so I'm going to move to it. And then as soon as Apple make another one and they make it bigger, that will probably be better. And then I'll move back to that one, right?
Yeah, that's basically my plan. Stick with the 10 as long as they make just one version, and whenever there's a bigger model, upgrade to that. Because I'm sure the screen on that phone is gonna be glorious, like
6.5 inches or something.
Yeah, imagine like a Plus with no bezel. I mean, that would be amazing.
So the two of you feel confident that there's a Plus version of this new phone coming at some point?
Yeah, because I imagine they won't continue making the iPhone 6 design forever, and they won't sell just one phone. This is why I think there'll be a 9. There will always be more than one phone.
Maybe. I'm torn on that. I think maybe there's part of this that feels like I want there to be a bigger phone. Let me just state my preference before I say what I'm getting ready to say. But I can look at this phone and I could see the argument of saying this gives you the best of both the regular and the Plus. So what we used to do with 2 phones because we had to, we can do with 1 phone now with this new technology.
So I think that you are right for now. In the same way that the screen was as big as we needed before there was a Plus, right? Like the argument of like, oh, why would we have a big screen like those silly Android phones? I think it's the same kind of thing. It's just a reset. And after this becomes the norm, we'll want a bigger screen again.
But I think we're thinking ahead of ourselves here. Let's talk about the notch, or as Apple calls it, the sensor housing. A small... It's called the sensor house, a small place where the sensors are placed in the device. So all the folks that were saying Apple should embrace the notch were right. Apple is most definitely embracing the notch, and actually they have put out updated developer guidelines. They've even refreshed the WWDC app and developer portal with new videos and new guidelines. And they're explicitly telling developers, do not place black bars at the top to hide the corners, the rounded corners of the display. Do not place a black bar at the bottom to hide the home indicator. You should take advantage of the full screen of the iPhone 10.
So happy.
And yes, and I agree, because I think it's one of those cases, when Johnny Ive says it's the purest expression of, I think this is totally correct. I think this is not marketing, this is true. I don't understand Well, actually, I do understand, and I have some ideas. But the developers and the designers, who, on Twitter, if you scroll Twitter, especially what I call design Twitter, there's a trend right now going on of designers posting mock-ups of what an iPhone 10 with black bars will look like, and then it will look better.
It would be so wonderful. No,
not at all.
No,
not at all,
because it's on principle. I don't want a screen that I'm paying for to be cut off. I want all of it. I'm buying this screen, goddammit, and I want to use all of that screen. Right? Like,
and also, it just looks so.
I don't know.
It just looks more futuristic. And
yes,
I think it goes back to a fraction of the design community that sort of looks back at the days of iOS 6 and iOS 5, the old Apple design, thinking that it still looks better than iOS 11, which I totally don't understand. But everyone has different taste. But I do believe that embracing the notch and having a full screen app design on the iPhone 10 looks so much better than faking a black status bar at the top. I think the black status bar makes sense for some types of applications, like photo editing apps, for example, where you want a more, maybe a more constrained space, like you don't want to have any distractions on top of the app. So it makes more sense for some apps, but in general, I think it looks so much better and so much. It's just so cool when you look at the entire app UI that extends towards the top of the iPhone 10. I think Apple is right here.
It's also really funny to me that like a lot of criticisms right now is how bad everything looks in landscape. It's as if nobody's ever used a landscape iPhone before. It's always looked terrible, everyone. Like
you
don't know this because you also are diametrically opposed to having a Plus phone.
Yeah,
landscape iPhones, it's just not. No one uses it because it sucks, right? Like, because it's just not right. It's just not built right. Like, I've used it every now and then, but everything's kind of awkward, right? Like, it's never been a good experience.
It's always been kind of terrible and kind of like an afterthought. It wasn't really the primary way of interacting with the phone. Even on the Plus, you can tell it's an afterthought.
Nobody builds stuff right for it because nobody uses it, and et cetera, right? Like, saying how bad everything looks in landscape because of the notch, at that point, in my opinion, you're just looking for something. You're looking for a criticism to make, which is totally fine because you know what? You don't have to like it, but I do. I mean, my problem with a lot of this sort of stuff is like, and this is just a problem with the internet, where people just state something like it's a fact, right? Like your opinion is not fact. All of the stuff that I'm saying right now, it's my opinion. My opinion is all of this. But like, I know it can be super difficult to state this stuff without context, especially on Twitter. But it's just, when things just rub you up the wrong way, and that's one of them for me. It's like, this is a fact that I'm stating. My fact is based upon my opinion. These are not.
Mike, I think you in general have a problem with some type of memes from the Apple community.
Yeah,
like some
I really do. I have
shared beliefs.
Or like just shared phrases, terms, anything really. I have lots of problems. Lots of them.
You have lots of problems?
I have lots and lots of problems.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I can live with them. The problem is everybody else has to as well, because you have to listen to me talk about it.
So anyway, the notch. You now have two Badman ears on the top of the phone.
Do you know what's so great about that, Federico? I love you so much, but to me it sounded like you said Badman, and I was like, "Oh, hang on a second, we got a Badman in here, huh?"
you got a Badman. So from the right side, so they are kind of interactive in that you can swipe down from them, and the features that they activate have been split in two. So the right side opens the new control center, which doesn't come up from the bottom anymore. It comes down from the top, kind of like an Android phone. And the left side, it goes to the cover sheet, which is the new notification center / lock screen of iOS 11.
And you can swipe down in the middle of the screen, as always, to access Spotlight, MKBHD. Very thankfully cleared that one up for me.
I have a lot of have a lot of thoughts before we move on from this very thing.
I just want to say that for Control Center, I was maybe thinking / hoping that Apple would integrate Control Center with the app switcher, like on the iPad. I think this looks kind of weird because it's going to take a while in terms of muscle memory to think that my flashlight, I now need to swipe from the top of the phone. It's also maybe going to be more difficult to access. I don't know.
The flashlight's on the locked home screen.
I know it's also on the locked home screen, so then maybe it's not a problem. What about music playback or like the other shortcuts?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. Hopefully it would be showed there, right? If you're playing something already.
I think I will get used to it anyway. It's not going to be a deal breaker. But yeah, it's going to be strange initially.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons they did that is just because I can't imagine how they would have fit all of that on one screen, like the multitasking and the control center, because I bet you'd always be swiping the wrong way. It's like the cards thing again. You'd always be swiping and you're either looking for one or the other, and which one does it show you? So at least with the control center as it's going to be, whilst it's a place to get used to, it's a dedicated place that it always is, and you will always get it. You know what I mean? But yeah.
So in January 2016, actually on my birthday that year, oddly enough, I wrote what has to be the most unpopular thing I've ever published.
All right.
Mainly because Gruber called it out. He disagreed with it, so I got emails for months. People telling me I was stupid.
Oh.
Talking about combining Control Center and Notification Center. Now, this is obviously now, a year and a half ago, so it's an older system. Control Center and Notification Center are different now, right? With cover sheet, I guess. But it is, I think, inherently odd that you pull down from the left Badman ear to get one thing, and you get another thing when you go right. And I don't know, if the solution is combining them, or if it is, if you pull down and you swipe one direction, you get widgets, but you swipe the other way, you get Control Center. Like, it just feels very disjointed right now. And maybe I'm sure this is not the case, but it feels a little bit like they designed this phone and they figured out, then they realized they had to retrofit Control Center into it. And it feels a little hacky to have one thing on one side and one on the other. And then Spotlight is a third thing. Like, why can't Spotlight live in some other place? Like, it feels like there's a lot going on with the gestures on this phone. We haven't even gotten to when you go home, you swipe up and those animations are weird too. Like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to remember. And I'm sure we will all adjust, right? That's not my problem. We will all adjust to it. But I feel like there's a lot going on, and it's a little disappointing that they didn't take the opportunity to readdress some of this stuff and combine them somehow, like they did on the iPad. The iPad, for all of its pros and cons of the new multitasking system, having your multitasking and your Control Center together is actually pretty nice, because you just have like this dashboard view of all the things you can do. And the iPhone doesn't have that, and on the iPhone 10, it's even more fragmented than it was before.
I'm happy with it though. I want to use it, but this makes sense to me because it's persistent. Like, the things that you were just recommending there, Stephen, it's the same problem I have with the current Control Center, right? Like, combining it with widgets, it's like the idea of swiping, and I never feel like I've got what I want, and I can never remember which way I need to swipe. Like,
and I'm not saying that I have the answer. This is a hard problem. Like, this is a complicated thing, but I'm not like what they did is probably even though there's a lot of gestures, it's probably the simplest from your perspective, right? That you don't have to mode switch once you've entered a new area of the UI, but I don't feel like they've quite hit it.
Yeah, I think the separation of the two sides, of course, makes it easier and makes it possible to do this kind of multiple gestures, because left is one thing and right is another. It would have been stranger if there was like an invisible separator between them. So I think the ears actually make this possible, make this better. I do wonder, I'm just curious, like, technically speaking, and maybe I should have checked in the simulator in Xcode, but if you're using a left to right language, does the functionality reverse, like the left side becomes Control Center and the right side becomes the cover sheet? I think so, because the entire UI kits should be flipped. So that's interesting. I do wanted to ask you guys, do you think there will be a time in the, let's say, next 3 years, so by, say, 2020, are we going to see an iPhone 10-like phone without the notch?
I think that is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
So to keep making that smaller and smaller until it's gone. That's how you take this phone to its end. But they're not close to that yet. Because there's so much technology that has to be crammed into that thing. And I think the goal will be, how do we get it all under the screen?
Yeah, if you look at their on one of their many confusing product pages, there's a graphic of everything in that notch. And I agree with you. Like, there's a ton of stuff in there.
Yeah.
And it is cram-packed. It's actually probably a little surprising it's as small as it is now. I do think ultimately, Federico, you're right, that they will get there. Is it in 3 years? I don't know. But I do think ultimately that's where they want it to be. And if they get rid of the notch and then they get rid of the Badman Ears, then they run into the problem that we have
This is
been
my
discussing.
favorite. This is my absolute favorite. The Badman Ears.
You guys are terrible with me.
It only took us 3 years to get back to timer koalasing. Only 3 years.
Oh man, remember that?
Yeah,
that was a long
this is the new
time
one.
ago.
All right, let's take a break. I want to talk about Blue Apron. They're also helping to support this week's episode. Blue Apron are the #1 recipe delivery service with the freshest ingredients. Their mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone while supporting a more sustainable food system. They do this by setting incredibly high standards for their ingredients, by sending you just the right amount of ingredients that you need to reduce food waste, and by also including step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe cards in the box. Their meals cost less than $10 each, and Blue Apron will deliver to your home seasonal recipes with fresh, high-quality ingredients to let you make amazing, delicious home-cooked meals in 40 minutes or less every day. Blue Apron has a freshness guarantee. That means if something is bad, if there is something wrong with any of the ingredients, it's not ready to cook when it arrives, they will make it right for you. Blue Apron has an incredible selection of food. You can choose from new recipes every week or let their culinary team surprise you. Right now, you can cook meals like summer vegetable and egg paninis with Calabrian chili mayonnaise and caprese salad, or maybe even skillet vegetable chili with cornmeal and cheddar drop biscuits. Oh man. I want to eat so bad right now, and all of these meals sound so good. Also, with Blue Apron, whilst you're following along with these recipes, I can almost guarantee you that you are going to pick up new cooking skills that you didn't know you had, that you'll be able to turn to any meal that you cook for yourself. There's no weekly commitment for Blue Apron. You'll get these deliveries just when you want them. Check out this week's menu and get 3 meals for free with your first purchase, including free shipping, by going to blueapron.com/connected. You will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so get started today by going to blueapron.com/connected. We'd like to thank Blue Apron for their support of this show. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. All right, so Face ID. Face ID is a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah.
I'll start with you, Stephen. You're going to miss the home button, do you think? What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, so when we talked about this when this rumor first came out, and we made some predictions, and we all did terribly. I think it's because we sort of lacked the understanding of how this would work, and I think Apple did a good job at selling it that it's easy to use, and that it is the things that are not Touch ID related to the home button, they've moved other places. So the side button, you long press for Siri, which seems like it's going to be more accident prone. I'm curious to how that's going to play out, because with the 7, if it's in your pocket, you can't really do Siri accidentally because you can't push the button. But with this, it seems like that's going to happen a bunch. I'm curious to see how that plays out. You can double tap the side button to do Apple Pay. You can still do the 5 press thing to enter SOS mode like you can on the current phones under iOS 11. So the things that the home button has done, they have moved elsewhere. The one feature, at best I can tell, and Federico, maybe you know the answer to this, I think reachability is gone. I don't think I've seen where it goes.
No, it's gone. It's no more. Yep.
So rest in peace, reachability. Rest in peaceability.
Oh,
it's probably fine on a phone this size, right? Like, are we gonna miss it?
I don't know.
I think.
Did you ever?
I don't know.
I use it all the time.
Really?
To bring notification center down with one hand.
Yeah,
So,
I do use it sometimes.
I'll miss that. If I can't reach it, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how this thing feels in the hand yet. Like, I don't actually know how it looks or feels in my hand. Maybe I can reach the entire screen just with my thumb. Who knows? Like, I haven't. Do you mean I don't have the context yet? But
right.
If I can't reach the notification center with just one hand, like if holding the hand that I'm holding, then I will miss reachability for that because it allows me to do that. But it is a dumb feature which they probably should get rid of, right? Because it's like it's an embarrassing thing to have to add to a phone.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I get that, but I do think. I mean, I don't use it, but it sounds like you do, and you find it useful, so then it's probably worthwhile. So I mean, so to kind of wrap my point up, it feels like they have built a case for these are all the things the home button used to do, and this is where they are now. They're either behind gestures, which you'll learn to figure out, or they're behind a side button press, and they've kind of reassigned all those actions elsewhere in the phone. And so I think I'm honestly going to be just fine.
Many months ago, we made Touch ID predictions. So, like, we've been talking for weeks about whether Touch ID would go away or not, and we made predictions. There were 3 questions. One was if the iPhone 8 would feature a Touch ID sensor on the back or embedded. Obviously, this question was misguided, considering what we know now. We were obviously all wrong. Me and Stephen thought it would go on the back. Federico thought it would go under the display. The answer is it doesn't exist. The second question was, would Apple ditch Touch ID because of hardware issues? We don't obviously know what the answer was. We all didn't think that Apple would do that. It will maybe never be known if they got rid of Touch ID because they couldn't do it, as opposed to wanting to go to Face ID. Like, we don't know. And would Apple ditch Touch ID in favor of another form of biometric identity for the iPhone 8? I said that I didn't think that Apple would have something that could be as secure as Touch ID. I was wrong. Steven said that he didn't think that Apple would do it because they spent so much time preaching the security of Touch ID, so it would be too hard to remove it. And Federico was the only one of us who said, unless something new is safe or safer. So we had 3 predictions. There were 9 possible right answers. We got one of them. So well done to us, I guess. Especially Federico. There were 9 possible outcomes.
Only Federico.
And only one of those 9 were correct. So we didn't do the best job there. But Federico, you got something right.
I mean, if you look at the hard numbers that Apple presented yesterday, it sure seems like the Face ID is more secure than Touch ID because fewer people in the world could accidentally unlock your phone because they share the same facial features as yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that there's some real, like, but when they put the asterisk on that, I'd love to know what those statistics are, because they never said before, unless someone you live with has similar fingerprints to you. Like, that was never a thing that they spoke about, but they did say...
They mentioned even if it was a joke. Even if it was a joke, they joked about the evil twin, but that was not... I don't think that was meant to be a joke.
No.
It was meant to be serious, but presented in a lighthearted way.
Yeah, I'm really keen to understand, like, my brother, who kind of looks a little bit like me, can he unlock it? Like, how close do you have to be? So I'm excited. Not excited. I'm keen to try that out, right, and see what that's like. And I appreciate that they said it, but, like, I would also like to know what those numbers are, because those numbers they didn't share. Like, what is the chances at that point? Because I bet it would be less than 1 in 50,000 at that point, because they had felt they needed to say it.
I can already kind of feel how the next iPhone gate will be about twins being able to unlock each other's iPhones.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Especially
that's what
identical.
Yeah, that's probably what it will be.
Twin gate.
And
twin gate?
Twin gate.
Maybe I can break that gate wide open too. I just need to go back in time and have a twin.
Why don't you register the web domain already? Twingate.com.
Oh, that's good.
Jude looks a lot like
Hover
you.
was a sponsor.
So maybe you can see if Jude can unlock your phone, and then you can post a 10-second YouTube clip and get a billion views and go on TV.
That anniversary is coming up, like next week sometime.
Well, it's always going to be whenever the iPhone come out, right? Like,
oh yeah, I guess that's a good.
Do you want to talk about the fact that? Do you want to talk about the incredibly poor luck for Craig Federighi?
I very
much the worst
want to
possible
talk about this.
thing that could have happened during this presentation actually did happen.
Yes. So around the hour 36-minute mark, Craig Federighi goes to demo the iPhone 10 for the first time. And it makes a lot of sense, right? He's got to pick it up and unlock it with his handsome man face because that's the first thing you want to demo on this phone, and it fails. And so there's a screenshot in my blog post. Enter passcode. Your passcode is required to enable Face ID. We have all seen messages like this. A lot of people said, what's what happens when your phone restarts? That is not true. That's not the language used when your phone restarts. That language is Touch ID requires your passcode when iPhone restarts. It gives you the reason it is required. However, iPhones can enter this state where a PIN is required to authenticate before you can use a biometric authentication if Springboard crashes, if you've installed a software update and haven't logged in since. That happened to me after the iOS 11 GM yesterday. I got this exact language on my 7 Plus. This is not what happened. I'm sure this phone was not put in SOS mode, but if a phone goes into SOS mode, it shows this error message. Or if Touch ID can't match after several tries. So we've all done this. We got out of the shower, right? And we're all raisiny and warm and cozy. And we go to unlock with Touch ID and it won't work. You can get this message. So all that to say, something happened to this phone. I don't think it was restarted, but either the Springboard crashed while it was sitting there under a black cloth waiting for Craig to walk over to it, or in people getting it ready, it tried to unlock on their faces a bunch of times and it couldn't do it and then entered this mode. But something happened. And the initial response was, oh my gosh, Face ID is broken. And that's just not true. I think it's just bad luck that this phone entered a state that it needed a PIN before he could move forward. Federighi has come a long way from his shaky hand on the trackpad in the Back to the Mac event in 2011. He said, hey, we have a backup phone. He picks up the other phone. He unlocks it. He proceeds to unlock that phone several times, which seemed off script. But I think just to reiterate, hey, this works. Lock the phone, do it again. He did it a couple of times during the demo. I think that first phone was just really bad luck. I'm sure it's embarrassing for Apple and the event team. I'm sure someone, when that happened, sort of sank through the floor they were standing on. Maybe someone got yelled at. There is a funny bit that happened years ago when Steve Jobs was trying to import photos into iPhoto for the first time and the digital camera wouldn't come on, and he throws it into the front row of the audience, I guess to his assistant or somebody.
Really?
Yeah, it's great. We'll dig that up for the show notes. But he just chunks it and is like, here, fix this. And then I think it happens again. And anyways, so I think he should have untethered the phone and chunked it off the side of the stage. I think it would have been a really nice. You dedicated the place to Steve Jobs. Throw something off the stage. That's all I want. So anyways, I think Face ID is fine. I think this was just an incredible crummy piece of luck. I think Federighi handled it well. Yes, it's embarrassing for Apple. Yes, it will be kind of made fun of for a while by people who remember it, but I'm not worried, right, that I'm going to go use Apple Pay at Whole Foods and I have to enter my PIN. This is something that happened on stage. It happens in real life to us randomly. And it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's anything more than that. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about it. I think it is what it is. It will happen to me every few days because it happens to me every few days right now, right? I have to put my passcode in instead of my thumb. I'm not bothered about it.
There's something that I want to mention about the new unlocking process on the iPhone 10.
Yeah.
So right now, I see some benefits and some things I'm kind of concerned about. So the obvious benefit to me seems like when you're holding the phone and you're dealing with notifications, it's more convenient than ever because just by looking, you put the iOS lock screen in a locked state, so you can fully interact with notifications and read messages, respond to messages, and all that. But the fact that you need to, there's a padlock icon now on the lock screen. It's a very big icon. And the animation for that icon to unlock is kind of slow. And it feels to me like the animation is actually slower than it takes for Face ID to authenticate you and to recognize you. So I wonder if the animation of the icon will cause the perception that Face ID is slower than Touch ID. And also I wonder if having to do the dance of look with your eyes open, then swipe up is going to be slower than place your finger and click.
So I am under the assumption that you are able to swipe the screen as you are raising it to your face and then look at it and it will go to the home screen.
Okay.
So
I wonder how that works.
Well, because when you swipe up, it will then say, look to open. So
or put in your passcode. Yeah. Okay.
Right? So this is something that I am under an assumption with which I'm confident is based on true fact.
Okay.
So that will be a way that you'll be able to do the kind of unlock from the pocket, right? Because this was my big thing. It's like, well, I unlock my phone. My phone's on the home screen before it gets to my face because I just unlock it as it's coming out of my pocket, right? So I just press the home button or whatever. This is a way, it might be a bit slower, but a way to kind of mimic that. So I don't feel like I'm always swipe. Like I want to swipe and look and then get there. And it seems like that is going to be a thing that is possible. But, the thing about the animation, I would maybe, if that's the case, right, like I would maybe say that the animation is taking as long as it takes the system to do what it's supposed to do. Rather than the system is waiting for the animation to complete.
It wouldn't be, there's precedent for that though. It wouldn't be the first time that iOS animation framework is actually slower than it takes the system to perform a feature. So we'll see. I mean, obviously this phone is not coming out until November, and I think, it's going to run probably iOS 11.1. So Apple has plenty of time to tweak things. And I mean, maybe we'll even see, some leaks from iOS 11.1. Who knows? I mean, maybe we'll know more in a few weeks. I guess. But yeah, overall, I think I'm a fan. I was talking to some friends and my girlfriend and my mom about this. Like, first question is, Face ID is super cool. Like, you look at your phone and it understands your face. And, I feel like when people hear that Apple did some tests with photographs and videos and masks, and it uses the depth information and the lasers to make sure that they're actually looking at a real human being, they're not being spoofed by, these other authentication tricks.
And it needs your attention and all that.
And it needs your
attention.
And that is super, everybody says that is super cool. Like, the invisible lasers and the 30,000 dots on your face, that's amazing. There's an element of that's kind of creepy, but I think we all had the same reaction 4 years ago when Touch ID first came out. It was kind of creepy that, a company can now read my fingerprint. And of course, it all comes down to the secure enclave and the way that Apple deals with this information. So I think the creepiness factor won't be an issue at all. If anything, I think Apple will probably have a PR problem with the identical twin stuff, and they're maybe sort of trying to get ahead of that problem by talking about it at the keynote. But I think overall, Face ID is super cool. It looks, sounds, and it works futuristically. So I think it's the perfect complement to this kind of futuristic phone.
All right, there's still so much more to go on this. Let me take a break, and we can get back to talking about the iPhone. We'll call it 10. Yeah, we'll call it 10, right? 10 is the agreed upon. 10 is the agreed upon.
Yes.
Today's show is brought to you as well by our friends over at Incapsula. Incapsula has website security tools and a content delivery network that makes any website safer, faster, more reliable. It's so easy to get started with Incapsula. You just need to make a small change to your DNS. Then Incapsula is ready to go. It's just waiting. Whenever you want to set it up, you can. There's no hardware to install, no software to install. It's just a very simple change you need to make to get everything set up. Then you will have access to Incapsula's 30 data centers, which house 3 terabits of bandwidth, all in their global network. This network keeps bad guys away from your site. Denial of service attacks would never hit your servers. Incapsula, they just suck it all in and take care of it that you don't ever need to see it. In the meantime, your content is cached. All of your connections will be optimized with the use of their powerful CDN, so everybody coming to your website will get your content lightning fast. And to keep your mind at ease, you can get a live traffic view of your site on Encapsula's dashboard with the ability to also create custom rules to meet your exact needs where required. As a listener of this show, you can get 1 whole month of service for free. You just need to go to encapsula.com/connected. That's incapsula.com/connected. This is where you'll find out more about Encapsula's service and also claim your free month. Thank you so much to Encapsula for their support of this show and Relay FM. So the cameras on the iPhone 10, I don't know if either of you understand this more than me, but it seems like they're the same, but with optical image stabilization on both. Like, are there any other differences? I don't really understand it.
So the 10 and the 8 Plus both have the new 12 megapixel sensor. It's also true on the 8, but the Plus and the 10 have the dual camera system with the telephoto lens.
And they're both 12 megapixel now, right? They weren't both 12 megapixel before.
I think so, yeah. The differences between the Plus and the 10 is that both lenses on the 10 are optically image stabilized. So before, just the regular lens was and telephoto wasn't. So this would make portrait stuff and zoomed in video smoother, which is good. The other slight difference is the aperture is a little bit better on the 10 than the Plus, but it's a pretty minor change. I think, again, like going back a step, 8 versus 10, the 8 Plus has an amazing camera system, and the 10 is only a little bit better. If you're looking at the 8 or 8 Plus, like, I don't think you have to be super sad about the camera system you're not getting on the 10.
Real-time follow-up, the 7 Plus, both of them are listed as 12 megapixel as well.
Well, there you go.
But they're new, and they've got stuff in them. But yeah, looking at it, it's like the difference is the new one has a 2.4 aperture on the telephoto. The old one had a 2.8. And then it's dual optical image stabilization and a true tone flash with slow sync, whatever that means. They're the differences.
I don't know what that means. Yeah.
But
a better flash.
And apparently they've got a bunch of sensors in which are enhanced by, what do they call it, kids?
Neural networks.
There you go.
Machine
Neural
learning.
networks, machine learning. That's in the camera now. It's everywhere.
Bionic ISP.
Bionic. That's fun.
Apple's building their own. We skipped over it, but Apple's building their own GPU and ISP now because the power of VR stuff's
Internet
gone.
Service Provider is my understanding of that phrase.
Image System Processor. Yeah. So that's all good stuff. So they can do more fancy stuff. Front camera, you can do on the 10. You can do the depth stuff because they have all the stuff for Face ID. So even though it doesn't have 2 cameras,
selfies are gonna look so good, guys.
Yeah, Snapchat game's gonna go way up if you're young and into that sort of thing.
Like me and Federico.
Yeah, like you and Federico. Yeah, y'all are still in your 20s for now. Not much longer.
I look at this phone and I'm so blown away by the beauty of it. I don't want to put it in a case, and I'm really concerned about my opinion and my feelings about this.
Well, AppleCare Plus is $200 on this phone. $200
because it's glass. That's why. Wow. I mean, it's strong glass, but it's still glass, right?
So that's more than the 8 and 8 Plus. Even though the Plus AppleCare Plus, that's really a confusing sentence, is more expensive than on the 7 Plus. God, names.
Oh gosh darn it!
I assume is because if you smash the OLED screen, it's just more expensive.
Man, I don't know.
They said the glass is harder than what they've put on previous phones. They said the back glass has got a steel reinforcement under it to help keep it stiff. But yeah, people are going to break it. I am not going to put a case on it because I'm not an animal. My phone has been naked basically the whole time I've had an iPhone, and I will continue that tradition. The only question is what color to get. But no case here in my life. No case.
What do you want to do, Federico?
Well, I think I'm going to go with the obvious choice, which would be 256 gigabytes black. I mean, that's is it, I guess it's the most expensive one. No, the most expensive one is the 512 model.
No, it's 256.
That's not a 512.
Okay, so the best one. Yeah.
So, but are you going to put a case on it though?
What about the Folio?
initially, I will not. I will try to see. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna get Apple Care, so I will see if I can survive without a case. But I don't want to do the folio because I don't see the phone as an iPad. Also, I'm not the kind of business user. I don't think.
You got to put your debit card in there for fast access.
Yeah, sure.
Shouldn't Apple Pay fix that now?
That's the sweet irony of Apple's. So Apple's basically built a wallet case. Folds it like a book.
You would not be able to use Apple Pay properly because your card will be trying to talk to the reader.
I'm sure they've worked that out. The cards are on the front of the phone. NFC's in the back. I'm sure they've worked that out.
You would have to. The first person to you can't have them stacked on top of each other though. You'd have to have it opened to use it.
Maybe.
No, that's how NFC works. Like if you have two cards on top of each other and try and put them against the reader, it just doesn't know what to do. You have to like separate them. So you would have to open the folio every time you wanted to use Apple Pay and leave it open when you scan it. So you'll be doing it with like two hands, like a little book. Like you walk into the checkout with a book in your hand and you're putting it against the card reader. There's a word of warning to all of you folio fans out there. #folio fam. The folio fans.
Folio fam.
The iPhone 10 beats MacBook Pro in Geekbench tests.
Oh man.
It beats the 13-inch MacBook Pro in Geekbench tests.
So your new phone will be faster than your new laptop.
What does that really mean though?
It doesn't mean anything. Because so here's the thing about that, right? I'm just going to preempt ATP. I'm sure they're going to talk about this for 4 hours. I don't think it really matters because the type of task, even on an iPad, the type of tasks that push an iPad are just different from the type of tasks that push a Mac. And like there's some overlap, right? Like Jason Snell's editing podcasts on an iPad because he's a crazy person. But like most people don't do that. And like it's great if you're doing that sort of like hardcore production on iOS, but 99% of iOS users don't. And even the stuff Federico does is pushing the CPU and GPU more than most people do. But I think they're so different. Like, oh my God, the ARM processor is faster than the MacBook Pro. That doesn't mean we're going to have a MacBook Pro with ARM because it may be faster, but there's still 100 other problems with putting this chip in a Mac. Like you don't have Thunderbolt, all the stuff we talked about. You don't have Thunderbolt, you don't have Windows support. You have to have developers recompile their stuff, which they're not going to do because they don't care about the Mac. Like I don't see it happening. It's more for me, LOL Intel, that Apple's custom, assumingly much smaller team than what Intel has. Like I'm sure Apple's CPU team is a much smaller group of people than all of Intel, and they're getting it handed to them. But I don't think it is a big deal. It's no bigger of a deal than it was before this, I don't think.
Are you both worried about how many animated emoji you're going to get from me?
I'm definitely going to block you on iMessage.
I am gonna. This is it now. This is the pinnacle of everything. It's emoji stickers, which I've always wanted. I've always wanted to have to be able to use emoji like stickers. But now I can make them do whatever I want. I can make them make any type of face. You know, I can make an angry robot. I can make a happy monkey. I can make a perplexed chicken. Anything I want to do, I can do it. I'm so excited about this. I may just send all of my messages as audio messages recorded through the face of a unicorn. That might just be the way I communicate with people in 2017.
No, I want you to be the chicken, Mike.
Yeah, I feel like I need to spend some serious time choosing what my one will be, right? Like I think everybody needs to go through this. They even did it on stage, right? Where Tim was the alien, and what did Craig choose?
Craig was the fox.
He was the fox. Of course he was. Of course he
Obviously.
was. So I'm going to need to spend some serious time looking through this. I haven't seen anywhere yet like what the full list of emoji is.
So if you go to Apple Newsroom on the iPhone 10 page, I think there's a list of them. There's 12 of them, I think. Okay. That's what they said. They have about 6 or 7 of them as GIFs. I will put the Fox one in the show notes so we can see that on the show note page for this episode.
Okay. I'm trying to find this list now. I don't see it. Sure, it says somewhere.
I think there's like 12 of them.
Okay.
And what's interesting, it's an iMessage app. Like it's not in the emoji keyboard, so you can't use them elsewhere. Like
It makes sense.
I think so too. And I think, they're still trying to make iMessage apps a thing, but it is what it is.
I'm very excited about Animoji, guys. I really, 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 really am. Like, very, very excited about it. Like,
and it was the first time that I genuinely laughed at an Apple event.
I was laughing my butt off. I was
especially
losing it.
Like I did not expect Johnny to do the demo of the Animoji, and that was when you get the feeling that someone, and that person tends to be a very serious, very composed person, mm-hmm. and then suddenly they do something funny, and it's funnier than it should be because you never see them in that light.
Because it's so out of character for them.
Yes, and that's exactly what happened to me with Johnny yesterday. He was doing the monkey Animoji, and it was like, this is just so funny. It's like the good times during the Apple video. The white room is funnier than usual.
The white room got some character in it, and those characters were animated monkey faces. I'm really excited about this feature. Like, this is something that people are going to go crazy for, I think. And I'm very, very, very excited to play with it.
Even technically speaking, it's quite the accomplishment from Apple because they're using the new face recognition APIs, and I guess they're also available with ARKit. All the detection points that developers can request to form this approximation of your face. And they're also doing some stuff, I guess, with Metal 2 and maybe SyncIt to animate the Animoji on screen. So if you look at the leaks from the iOS 11 GM from last week, all the Animoji were low poly versions, so very low polygon count. And I believe Apple is doing some hardware tessellation to smooth all the surfaces out and make the polished, rounded, fully 3D Animoji that we have on the iPhone 10. So that's kind of awesome from a technical perspective too. It's a silly feature, but it's very nicely done from a technical perspective, and it's also
This is not silly. This is deadly serious.
It's serious too. I mean, I think it's gonna sell iPhones, honestly. And it's going to make for some amazing commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited.
This isn't in the notes, but iOS 11 does not have Apple's new emoji. It's going to be, assumingly later, maybe in 11.1 with this new phone. I was going to ask you, is that a break? Has it been on a minor update, or have they been in major releases the last couple of years? I just couldn't remember.
No, they've been in the 10.2, 10.3,
okay.
10.2,
okay.
I think, actually, yeah. A couple of months later.
This isn't a break from precedent, then?
Yeah, I mean, you have to wait for your elf emoji, which is coming with the next version. Yeah.
I just want the mind-blown one.
iOS 11 comes out next week. How are you feeling, Federico?
Do we need to talk about it? Like,
I mean, we can just gloss right past it and pretend it's not happening if that will make you feel any better.
I just wanted to say that, of course, the final week is sort of a rush to get everything done. There's still bugs to be fixed, screenshots to be taken, and this year we're working on new extras, new avenues to be explored. So we're also trying to finalize that, and more shall be revealed next week on Connected and on Mac Stories and everywhere, hopefully. But yeah, I'm obviously 6 days left means not much sleep will be experienced by my body.
Odd way of saying that.
It's very weird. The real roundabout. What day does it come out? Is it Tuesday the 19th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And my review will be out hopefully a couple of hours before Apple pulls the switch. So people have time to check out the review before they rush to update everything. Yep.
Whew. It's a big day.
It's a good review. It's good. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
All right, so we are actually out of time for today. Mostly because Federico has an espresso deficiency right now or something, and like there's some words that are needed. I'm not 100% sure of the reason. I just know that there's some kind of like real emergency in regards to, I think, the sleep that Federico has put into his body or something. His word is in some way like that. So we're going to hold talking about the Apple Watch and the Apple TV to next week. Along with talking about iOS 11. So we've still got an action-packed show. I mean, there's so much stuff. Why not spread it out, right? We've got a few weeks that we need to fill here before the products come onto our doorstep. So we'll talk about the Apple Watch and our opinions on the Apple TV next week. If you want to find our show notes for this week, head on over to relay.fm/connected/159. You can find Federico at macstories.net. You should keep your eyes locked to Mac Stories over the next week or so because there's lots of cool stuff happening. Federico is at Viticci on Twitter, VITICCI. Steven is at ISMH, and you can find his work over at 512pixels.net. I know that Steven has finished work on his High Sierra review, but that doesn't come out until what, the 25th?
The 25th, so I got a couple weeks, but yeah, it's ready to go.
You're the lucky one.
I am.
You can find me, I am at imyke, IMYKE, on Twitter, and yes, I do have a cold, and yes, I am sorry about that. Thanks again to our sponsors this week, the fine folk over at Incapsula, Hover, and Blue Apron. And we'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, guys.
Arrivederci.
Adios.